One Piece is not generally thought of as a dark series, unlike, say, Death Note, Attack on Titan, the works of Junji Ito, works that deal with such topics as mass murder, the horrors of war, and what if a shark had legs. No indeed, upon first glance, One Piece seems quite the opposite. It is bright, it is colourful, it is cheery, it's even downright silly. But beneath this cheery exterior, there are some surprisingly dark depths that this story goes to. Up to and including mass murder, the horrors of war, and yes indeed, a shark with legs. In this video I'll be breaking down what are, in my opinion, the top 10 darkest moments in One Piece. Number 10. Robin sails away from Ohara. Now I've already gone into detail on the extreme tragedy of Robin's Ohara backstory in previous videos, so I'll try not to ramble too much here, but the real clincher is this final shot, where after seeing her only friends and her mother get killed and seeing her home burned down, Robin, all alone at the age of 8, is forced to sail away from Ohara, and with tears in her eyes she does the only thing she can think to do. Remembering Saul's words to her, she tries to force herself to laugh through her tears, to give herself some semblance of escape from the horror of her situation. This scene hits like an absolute truck, especially knowing that Robin would continue to be alone from this moment on for the next 20 years. Number 9. Yasuie's death scene. Another character who shares Saul's philosophy of don't cry, laugh is Yasuie, and I think we all know where this is going. Yasuie's death scene is so tragic for so many reasons. Not only was he a great guy who did his best to cheer up his fellow residents of Wano in what seemed like a dire situation, we also know that Yasuie did not eat a smile fruit. His laughter was not an unwilling compunction like the residents of Ebisu Town, but it was a genuine expression that he used to help them cheer up and feel better about their condition. And yet, as he died laughing, the townsfolk who loved him so much had been knowingly given defective smile fruits by Orochi, robbing them of their ability to even grieve his death, forcing them to laugh uncontrollably at his passing. An act that makes Zoro understandably angry as hell at the seeming disrespect of the situation. Of course, he doesn't have the full picture yet. And as if all that wasn't dark enough already, Otoko is here to witness her father's death. A fellow smile victim, she too can only laugh uncontrollably through her grief as she attempts to use the very same toad oil that Usopp sold her earlier in the arc in a futile attempt to bring her father back. This scene, combined with the truth behind the smile fruits and the personal involvement of Zoro and Usopp in the situation, all stacks up to make it one of the biggest gut punches in Wano. 8. Sanji's Iron Mask. Speaking of gut punches, Sanji received quite a few of them from his brothers growing up, all while his father looked on mercilessly at the quote-unquote shame of the Germa Kingdom. But worse than even that physical and mental abuse was Judge's next step, falsely claiming to his denizens that Sanji had died and electing to act as though that were true, when in reality he was keeping Sanji locked away in a dungeon with an iron mask locked over his face because Judge was too ashamed to look upon his son. Father of the Year, everyone. Good God. The neglect and suffering that Sanji went through as a child was truly harrowing to watch unfold. If only Sanji had been able to have some kind of birthday party with all of his friends and all of his favourite food. I mean, there's no way that that could have ended badly. Oh. 7. Big Mom's birthday. Big Mom's backstory was quite the experience, and it has a two-pronged attack in terms of dark revelations. Firstly, the fact that Mother Carmel, who seemed so sweet and to genuinely care for Lin Lin, was in fact running a child trafficking ring, raising these kids only to sell them off to the government to be groomed and trained as Cypherpole agents. Yikes. It almost makes you glad that during her birthday meal, Lin Lin entered a fit of hunger pangs so powerful that she couldn't stop eating, to the point that she unknowingly ate all of her friends and Mother Carmel too, awakening from this blackout to find them all gone and falsely believing that they had abandoned her, the second time in her life that Lin Lin had been abandoned by a parental figure. But don't worry, at least she then immediately got taken under the wing of Streusen, who witnessed this act of cannibalism and thought it was quote-unquote hilarious. So, you know, he was going to be a great influence on Big Mom there. 6. The Shabondi Auction House. Now I think we all remember the day that we blissfully tuned into our favourite silly goofy pirate show to find out that not only is slavery a prominent feature of this story, but the slavery in this world is actually government sanctified. Although it does build to one of the most satisfying moments in the series, it's hard to express the sheer abject horror I felt as I watched Disco gleefully present this slave auction as though it was some kind of Saturday night game show, disregarding and dehumanizing the prisoners that he is selling off, all while the crowd at best looks on in morbid curiosity and silence, and at worst joins in with Disco's over-the-top celebratory attitude. It is a sickening sequence to watch unfold. Although to make up for it, we do of course get the Charlos punch, and I also want to shout out the scene of Doflamingo immediately throwing Disco under the bus when everything starts to go wrong. Although Dofi has numerous sickening crimes of his own, you have to admit this was a pretty funny move. You got what you deserved, Disco. You got what you deserved. At number 5 is Baby 5, whose name alone should tell you just how much her mother cared for her, abandoning her due to her being deemed useless as just another mouth to feed. This instilled Baby 5 with a compulsion to be useful and to be needed, which made her an easy target for Doflamingo to manipulate and mold as part of his family. That on its own is already pretty messed up, but the truly dark moment comes in her fight with Sai. Sai, blissfully unaware of Baby 5's tragic backstory, engages in some classic battle combat and suggests this whole thing would be easier if Baby 5 would just simply die. This Baby 5 takes far too literally, immediately proceeding to get demonetized on YouTube in order to prove herself useful. Yikes. It really hammers home just how damaged Baby 5 had become as a product of her upbringing, and although it does get resolved quite quickly, it is still quite an unsettling scene to watch unfold. 4. Jinny. Now, you didn't think we were going to get through a list of the darkest moments in One Piece without touching in with one Bartholomew Kuma now, did you? There are many dark moments to pick for in Kuma's backstory. It is a veritable smorgasbord of tragedy and darkness. But to me, one detail stands out above the rest. And technically I'm cheating here because we don't actually see this moment, but what we do know is Jinny was abducted by a celestial dragon and taken away to the Holy Land, and later, upon being let go from the Holy Land, was with child. I had to take a moment when reading this because the implication inherent in this situation is truly horrific. The suffering of Kuma throughout his life that we do see is bad enough, but we can only imagine at the unseen suffering that Jinny endured. 3. The Roger Sun Purge. One of the more shocking revelations during Marineford was that the Marines took it upon themselves to dole out their oh-so-just baby persecution operation. Not satisfied with simply having executed the man himself, they attempted to eradicate his entire bloodline by hunting down any pregnant women and any child that they thought even had the slightest chance of being related to Roger. Only through sheer willpower was Portgas de Rouge able to unnaturally hide and extend her pregnancy in order to save Ace from this operation. And because we know both Rouge and Ace did survive this, we can extrapolate that the government killed dozens, if not hundreds, if not more, innocent women and children for no reason. I mean, Rouge and Ace were also innocent. Being born and existing is not a crime, but still, when you think about the numbers involved in this exercise, it is staggering. I can appreciate that One Piece tries to go for a nuanced angle in that not all pirates are good and not all Marines are bad, but this revelation is where that kind of rhetoric really started to feel hollow for me. While there are good Marines in the system, when the system itself is pulling shit like this, it's hard to ignore the blood on their hands and the hypocrisy inherent in the justice they wear on their backs. And if one government-endorsed purge of innocent people wasn't enough, let's take a look at Law's hometown of Flevance. The precious stone mined from this town led to the development of white lead disease, a deadly disease that would slowly kill anyone who made contact with this material. The world government knew this, but kept mining it anyway in order to line their own pockets. Not only that, but they fired up the old reliable propaganda machine in order to fuel the rumor that the white lead disease was contagious when it wasn't, thus vilifying and othering the inhabitants of Flevance, allowing them the green light to persecute every single citizen in that town. Trafalgar Law, as far as we know, is the only survivor. After watching his classmates, his parents, and his sister be mercilessly slaughtered, he himself, at the age of 10, only managed to escape by hiding in a pile of corpses that were being taken out of the town. Even after escape, Law was now stricken with the disease that he knew would one day kill him, and he knew he would be reviled by almost everyone he met, falsely believing him to be contagious. No wonder this kid was ready to join Doflamingo and watch the world burn, and thank goodness to Koro-san for eventually showing him the light. Now if you're thinking to yourself, this video hasn't had enough child suffering in it, first of all, that's a weird thing to think. You might want to talk to someone about that. And second of all, you're in luck! During Punk Hazard, we find out that Caesar Clown has been abducting children in order to experiment on them in futile attempts to turn them into giants. He gaslights them into believing that they're sick and they're in his lab for treatment, and what he treats them with is his candy, which is in reality a drug he is using to keep them pliant. One that he has instilled in these abducted children an addiction to.
Punk Hazard is a pretty cool, wacky adventure.
Chopper eventually manages to snap at least one child, Mocha, out of her delusion, and Mocha is really the focus of this, what might just be the darkest moment in One Piece. With her fellow children suffering withdrawal from Caesar's drug as the Straw Hats try to save them, Mocha takes all the candy and runs with it, hoping to dispose of it, hoping that they can be snapped back to reality like she was. Unfortunately, they are many and she is one. Running out of places to run and running out of options, this poor, traumatized little girl takes it upon herself to make the ultimate sacrifice. In an act of pure desperation, doing the only thing she can think to do to get rid of Caesar's insidious candy, Mocha eats all of it in one gulp, taking a massive overdose that she knows will more than likely result in this being the last act she ever takes.
Cool, wacky adventure.
My jaw absolutely dropped when I first watched this scene go down. I was frozen in shock as I was left wondering if Oda was actually going to follow through with writing Mocha dying here. In spite of Oda's track record with killing off characters, in a post-Marineford world it actually felt like it could be a possibility. Thankfully he didn't, and Chopper was able to save her along with the other children on Punk Hazard, but even so, it was quite an alarming sequence of events. When I think about the darkest scenes I've seen in One Piece, this moment is always the one that most prominently comes to mind. So let me know what you think. Which of these moments did you find most shocking when watching or reading? Or is there a moment I didn't include that you think is even worse? Leave your comments below. Do remember to like and subscribe if you have not already. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one, which hopefully might be a bit lighter in terms of subject matter. I'll see you then!